Good evening. Parents will have the right to find out if anyone who sees their children unsupervised has ever been on the sex offenders register. It's one of several measures announced by the government today on how sex offenders in England and Wales are dealt with. Paedophiles will also be offered drug treatments to lower the risk of reoffending. Andy Ty has more.
Lurid headlines, strong emotions. Dealing with sex offenders can be dangerous territory for any Home Secretary. But a year ago, John Reid said protecting the public was his top priority, and today he announced his plans.
Strengthening supervision, satellite tracking, lie detector tests, improving treatment, possible use of drugs, and giving more information, better information to those most vulnerable, young women and their families in particular.
So how far do these proposals go? Well, some convicted offenders will be offered drugs to suppress their sex drive. But it's not a punishment, so it won't be compulsory. Parents will be able to get information about anyone in contact with their children who could be a paedophile, but it's only limited access, far short of an American-style Megan's Law where everyone is notified about a paedophile in their neighbourhood. The government seems to have accepted that automatic disclosure could drive offenders underground and encourage vigilantism. And it's got the support of the mother of the murdered schoolgirl, Sarah Payne.
This is a massive step forward. It's a very small step, but it's actually a giant leap, as they say. It takes us into another era of child protection, and it takes us into an era of sharing knowledge and really opening the doors.
Some of today's measures, like lie detector tests for paedophiles freed on licence, have been broadly welcomed. But critics say other key areas have been ignored.
In the middle of it, there are some moderate and sensible things. But what they haven't done is a huge missed opportunity, is providing a proper intelligence sharing arrangement for all the police forces in Britain. An arrangement which would have allowed us to prevent the Soham murders, for example, if we'd had it back in 2002.
Official websites like this already publicise sex offenders on the run. Some professionals are warning tonight that limiting access to sensitive information about paedophiles who've served their time will be difficult to put into practice. Andy Ty, BBC News.
Well, let's go live now to our studio in central London. Joining us from there, leading child protection expert and former police detective Mark Williams-Thomas. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Lots of measures, so we'll just kind of go through them in order, starting with what was initially headlined as chemical castration. It emerges it's not quite that. How important do you think what's been announced today in that regard could be?
Well, I think if you take that particular aspect of it, clinical castration, the problem is that you can subdue someone's sexual interest, but it still enables them to commit their offences. You know, after all, not all offences are about penetration. Some of those offences are around use of hands and other aspects of the body. So we've got to be very careful to say, is chemical castration going to stop somebody committing an offence? And the sad reality is no. So it's an additional measure, but it's not something that we need to be really positive about, because we should have been doing it for a while anyway.
And also, of course, what's been announced today relies on compliance, because it's purely voluntary.
Absolutely, and what we know about offenders is that offenders are devious characters. You know, they don't comply with things, and they will comply with things to a degree, but to their advantage. So there is a benefit to it, but sadly, it's not that helpful.
Again, Sarah's law, but not quite, although parents will be able to get checks on anybody who is coming into contact with their children. How much of a breakthrough do you think that is in terms of child protection?
Well, I think out of all the recommendations, this is the one that caused the biggest concern. How can you possibly police it? You know, Terence Granger has said himself that we'll put it to the public and the public will comply with it. Well, we have to work on the basis that they won't comply with it, and what happens when this information gets out. I don't support Sarah's law. I think Sarah's law creates a lot of problems. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the community, and by the community I mean the social services, the police, the probation service, are properly funded to be able to deal with people living in the community. It doesn't help by providing information to individual people, because after all, if one person's provided with that information, it's a great responsibility that person has to have that they aren't going to tell somebody else.
And 90% of child sex abuse is carried out by someone within the family, someone known to the family anyway. So would this make a difference when you bear that in mind?
Well, no, and this is where the problems come. This is about education. The government should have looked at this education aspect years and years ago. I'm still talking to people and saying stranger danger isn't the issue. Schools are still being taught stranger danger. That's not the issue. The issue is people that are known to them. You know, you talk about 90%, 80%, 90%. It's fair to say the figures are significant. The people that present the risk are people that are known to them through the grooming process, not the strangers. The strangers don't present the danger. After all, why would a child go up to someone who's completely a stranger? You know, you can conjure up the images of the man in the Mac. A child isn't going up to that. What we need to do is we need to educate, and we need to teach children that the person that presents the greatest danger is a person that's known to them, but we need to do that in a safe way.
So, in summary, do you think children are better protected as a result of what's been announced today?
Well, what I hope that the government don't see this as being the solution. What I hope they do is that they'll look at some of the strategies they put into place, some of the 20 recommendations. They'll work with the experts. After all, the politicians aren't the experts. The experts are the people that are working on a day-to-day basis with offenders and victims in the field. They need to pull those together. They need to analyse the results from them, and they need to act upon the recommendations that are coming back from the experts, not on what they think is the solution to it.
Mark Williams-Thomas, good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And do let us